So, welcome to our meeting. This video production is a planetary education project of Life Celebrating Health. And what we're doing is more than fun. I would warn you, that there's FBI interrogation on everyone who ever makes a copy of anything. So you would think that this disc is one of those because it'll be a DVD for you to hand out, but ignore all that FBI stuff because you're free to share copies of your DVDs when we get them for you to anyone who has a need to know. And of course, that means that folks who are suffering will thank you forever for sharing that.
And so immediately, I think I got back it happened on Friday. I was in his office on Tuesday, and he said that was very good because a lot of people come, they wait, and the sooner you get in, the better. And so he did, I don't know how many treatments, but for all practical purposes, my shoulder, other than a little click, it's perfectly okay. No problems at all with that. And I don't remember how many treatments I had, more than I wanted. I wanted one, but it did take more than that. And since then, I've had a few problems with other joints. Currently, I twisted my knee, and you've been working on my knee because I want to go skiing again here in a couple weeks. And the knee, fortunately, very small ligaments, and it's much better. I am confident I will be able to ski without any problems in a couple weeks.
I'm Bill Turk, and I've been going to Dr. T's office for around 10 years now. And the reason that I started was because some of you may understand what I'm about to tell you. I was married. I still am. I have a happy marriage. The reason, my wife found Dr. T and she went to him and she told me that I was going. So I went to him so that I could have a happy marriage. I'm still going to him and I still have a happy marriage, okay? But I was suffering from a lot of things. I am diabetic, as you might have guessed. I was on 5 diabetic pills. He put me on some different medication, changed things around a little bit, and the net result was I found myself in handcuffs. I didn't stop all the other medications, and I changed my way of eating, and I had a low blood sugar episode, and the police didn't like me wandering around the neighborhood, laying around in people's front yards. So they put me in handcuffs. They got the medics out, and they gave me some glucose and drove me home. Then I realized I had been over-medicating, and I didn't need all that stuff all those other doctors had given me. And I got off on to just a couple of pills a day instead of 5, and everything settled down and worked out very well for me. I can't blame the doctor for my weight problem, but that's not because of his lack of trying. I'd gone to chiropractors, I'd gone to lots of other people during my life. I was suffering from pain in my neck, I had pain in my middle back, I had pain in my lower back. I took my x-rays in. He throws them up on the wall like this and looks at it and says, "You got a rodeo injury." A rodeo injury? What in the world is he talking about? And I got to thinking, 20 years earlier, I'd been in an automobile accident. It actually broke the back of the seat in the Cadillac, okay? I got rear-ended down southwest Houston here. Gal was driving a pickup truck at, I would guess somewhere over 50 miles an hour and hit me in the back end. And I thought I was supposed to feel that way. He looked at it and says, "Yeah, you got that rodeo injury, and I think I can help a little bit." So we did the neck. My neck was giving me problems. We did the RT on the middle back, and we did a couple of RTs on the lower back. I think now looking back on it, I think it's been 3 years since I had an RT treatment. I'm kind of a exceptional patient, I think, because most people have to have a few more than that, or maybe I just wasn't as bad a shape. I can't stand pain. I'm not going there. I'm not going to tell you about the treatments and what they are, okay? We'll move away from that. But I'm standing up here today to tell you that that RT for me has worked a miracle. I haven't been to the chiropractor in 3 years. I would recommend that if you've got, I must have a dozen friends that won't take my advice. And they listen to that medical doctor, and they go in and they let him slice them up the backside and put those rods in. I've got a granddaughter, 17 years old, and she had rods put in her back. What is she? She's about 38 now, and she's had a couple of children, but they've all been a problem because she's got these rods up her back. She has real pain with it. I know another fellow that has back pains, and he went up there and let them split him open like a wild turkey, and they put him back together, and they put a TENS unit on him to try to stop the pain in his back. He can't get up and walk more than about 2 blocks before he has to sit down and try to find some way to get comfort from that back pain. Would he go to Dr. T? No, he'd rather go to the guy and pay the big bucks and experience all the wonderness of modern surgery and all the pain that stays with it afterwards. So, like Dr. Trowbridge mentioned, the choice is yours. Do you want pain, or do you want somebody to do something about it? Do you want somebody that can help you with your diabetes, or do you want to just go get stuff with more pills and put on the glucose and other things? It's kind of your choice. So, I've had just about every treatment that Dr. T has, and it's a unique service. I walked in there one day, and I'd had some kind of a bite on my leg or something, and it kind of had a little old sore about the size of a quarter, and I wasn't at all worried about it, but I showed one of the nurses in there, pulled up my pants leg, says, "Looky what I got." She looked at it, she says, "That looks terrible." I says, "Oh, it's not bad." She walked off, and about 15 minutes later, she came in there while I was chelating, and she says, "Dr. T wants to see you." And I went in, he took one look at it, and he says, "You've been bit by a brown recluse spider." Well, I went home afterwards, and I found a whole bunch of them out on my patio, okay? And me and them have parted company. But he says the reason it wasn't any big, he says the reason you get to keep your leg is because you were chelating. He says, and then he went through the mechanism of how the chelation helps destroy the poison. Well, I'll tell you what, if that brown recluse spider was any worse than what I had, I didn't want to fool with them, so I got me some dust and stuff and went out and did that whole patio. But I've had all kinds of little old problems like this that have come up, and he's had treatments for them. I went in and spent a week at Methodist Hospital, for example, tell you about chelation. They ran everything they could find on me. They knew this old fat boy, that he was just absolutely had to have heart problems. His veins had to be all plugged up, etc. They ran their MRIs, they ran their CTs, they ran their sonograms, they put units on my big toe, and they put them on my thumb trying to measure the blood flow, because they knew that there wasn't any blood flow. And when they got through with all the tests, yeah, there was blood flow. And yeah, there wasn't anything wrong with my heart. And yeah, they were going to have to turn me loose because they couldn't find anything wrong. Now, that's great news, okay? But you know the sad part of that news? Not one of those doctors bothered to ask me why. Why was my blood system in such good shape? Not one of them was curious. Now, what kind of a doctor is that doesn't want to learn how a patient is maintaining his health? You know, it makes you really wonder about the oranges in life. All right? So that's kind of a synopsis of 10 years of going to Dr. T and getting the great treatments that he's had to provide. And it does work. And I encourage all of my friends to go see him. And they look at me, and they say, well, is he covered by insurance? Well, no. I said, I just had this discussion the other day with somebody. He says, well, you know, gee, I think I'll probably go get my back operated on, you know, because it's covered by insurance. Pardon me. Let me ask you this. Would you rather go in there and get RT for a couple of $100 and get to feeling better right away? Or would you rather go in that hospital and be laid up for several weeks and then find your back still hurts and then have to pay the insurance deductible that they're going to charge you on that $20,000 or $30,000 operation if it's that cheap? That's going to cost you well over $200, I guarantee. You know, but like he says, I told him, the choice is yours. So thank you all very much for allowing me this moment to get up here and talk to you.
So the title of my talk today is Apples and Oranges. Could an apple a day truly keep the doctor away? I, of course, am Dr. John Parks Trowbridge here in Humble, and I welcome you to our seminar today. Now, we all know what's important in our lives. We want to be healthy and happy. But can you afford to be healthy? And can you truly be healthy? So this seminar is to help you get those answers now. The situation is very simple. We want the very best of everything. The best in our automobiles, the best in our homes, the best in our furniture and other home decor. We'd love the best clothes and jewelry and other comfort items. We'd love the opportunity to take vacations, travel the world, see whatever we want to see. We'd like the latest in electronic gadgets. For those of you who don't, share them with me. I'll take them. Most of all, we want the time for the most important people in our lives and time to relax with them and enjoy. And the time to share laughter and playtime with all of them. And the time of our life on earth is brief, and is there any reason not to seek comfort and joy while we're here? Now, the goal in getting healthy seems elusive. So the real challenge becomes, how can you find what really works and what is best for you? I think all of us would agree that the medical world is confusing. Your doctor, the TV talking heads, newsletters, newspapers, all offer conflicting advice. And you know, the hallowed halls of the hospital is where the major life events occur: birth, suffering, death. And these give to the hospitals a quality of awe and admiration, even fear. Yet home is where the heart is. And that's where we live out our daily lives, our struggles to find love and comfort, satisfaction, joy, and even meaning in our lives. So let's now compare apples and oranges. If oranges are the usual medical care that we've all grown used to, and apples are natural healing, which is what we're introducing today, it's interesting that doctors claim that natural methods don't work. Now, they claim that these different approaches don't work and they're even quackery, but in fact, many folks believe that the usual medical care doesn't work. In fact, all of the patients who show up in our office at Life Celebrating Health have come to that conclusion because it didn't work in their lives. So apples or oranges? Well, people ask that question, but each approach should be chosen for what it does best. But how do you tell? You look at the weight and the size. Will that comparison mean anything? Are big hospital buildings more important, more better? Are fancy doctor outfits and fancy offices better? An interesting question. You should spend your money wisely for the best results rather than wastefully, because remember, we want to spend it on the best of everything else. Some folks rush to surgery for a quick fix, but what if the results are less than desired? Some folks reach for tablets and say, well, I'm okay. But the question is, if you're fixed, why do you still need to take medications? Rapid results might not be the best answer. Now, popping a pill is always better, right? It's certainly easier, but the convenience that you trade right there might be very significant. How about the old saw, no pain, no gain? Well, that sounds awful, no pain, no gain. Knock me out and fix me where I can't feel anything. I want to feel no pain, right? And that choice for comfort sometimes compromises what we actually want in terms of final results. What about, should we choose what's easy to access or to experience? What happens when the treatment experience isn't what you wanted, especially in terms of the result? Now, isn't safety always your very first concern? It certainly should be. I promise you, it should be your first concern. But effectiveness matters as well. Isn't whether something works, whether it's effective for what you need, your very next concern? And what about future therapies? For example, if you have a joint replacement, that prevents you from having any further treatments that might be developed or could be used in your situation. So surgery sometimes takes you down a one-way street from which there is no other option. So here's my professional advice. Choose healing. For most everything that ails you, choose natural healing. You can always have more medications and more operations in the future. But the question is, did you trade your natural healing for drugs and surgery? Are there benefits to natural healing that you have traded for a bowl of porridge called drugs and surgery, never realizing that you did have the choice for natural healing? Now, we all know about bitter lemons, and we avoid those. What about bitter oranges? You know, not just bitter medicines to swallow. Sometimes you find bitter, not better, results from surgery. So in that vein, let's think about nothing worth doing is easy. Well, if you search the internet on Google, how do you choose of the 1.6 million sites that are hits on that search, which will tell you the most important information, which will tell you where to go, which will give you the best choices? So I'm going to give you some perspectives now. Let's go back to oranges. You really need to rely on an expert to help you see the benefits and risks of apples or oranges. And that's where you rely on a physician who knows and can help you best. Now, the usual approach in medical care is more drugs. And the other usual approach in medical care is more surgery. Well, my question then comes, how's that working for you? Short-term limitations can become long-term before you even realize it. And then what do you do, Ollie? Remember, with surgery, there are its own special risks. Things happen. Scars form that we're not happy with. Instruments rarely, but sometimes do get left in. I like the situation. This only happens 1 in 1,000. It doesn't matter to the other 999, only to the one that would be you that it happens to. Remember that drugs prescribed by doctors have their special risks as well. You see more and more advertisements for 1-800-BAD-DRUGS, where you can go sue for what happened. Because remember, the FDA approved each of these widely used prescription drugs as safe and effective, the FDA is watching out for you. Now remember, that's just a short list, and here's more bad drugs, again on a short list. Vioxx, widely touted as one of the best arthritis or joint pain medications, has killed over 55,000 people, especially with heart problems. So only later do we sometimes see devastating dangers. Well, what about more bad drugs? Perhaps Boniva or Fosamax, widely advertised on television now. People sometimes ask, why do we go to all the bother for natural healing when there are drugs easily available? Well, dangerous drugs such as these are used because doctors simply don't understand how to use calcium and vitamin D, hormone therapy, chelation therapy, and others to help build stronger bones. And yet the risks of Boniva, Fosamax, and similar drugs should be read before you ever put a pill in your mouth. What about more bad drugs? Here's a couple that you might not have thought about: aspirin and acetaminophen or Tylenol. They have their own special dangers, and sometimes it's hard to believe that common items could be deadly. If you have questions about that, Google side effects, deadly effects, adverse effects, and the name of the drug. Our world is changing fast. It is definitely a future shock. This was proposed 40 years ago by Alvin Toffler, that we start looking at the trends rather than the experiences currently available. The worst assumption is that high-tech drug and surgery inventions are better than natural healing. Now, the reason I say that's the worst assumption is because, is it true or not? So the question comes up, what are apples all about? While we think of natural healing as something soft and pleasant like herbs and massage, our scientific advances have given us hundreds more effective and safe treatments that stimulate, promote, encourage natural healing that God built inside your body. When you get a cut, you don't need a surgeon. It begins to heal right away. It's only the bigger cuts that need medical attention. Now, natural healing is not fantasy. These treatments aren't flights of fancy or fantasy, and many believe that we've lost the war on cancer, claiming that chemotherapy is the biggest unicorn of all. When you start looking at it from that perspective, the apples and oranges question becomes much more interesting. Natural healing really is high-tech, serious business, every bit as sophisticated as landing a jet on a carrier. So what do you really do in natural healing? How does that work? Well, the first thing is we look for and remove what's blocking you from getting better. And we work to remove that because it's personal pollution that is interrupting the way your body can heal. We look for and provide what trace factors that you need, but they're missing. So nails are very tiny trace factors, but when you try to build a house without them, it ends up looking much more like a log cabin. That's important to have those inside. We look for and find switches that you need to have turned on in order to heal, and then we turn them on. So the question really comes, is medical care, oranges, usual conventional care, really stuck in the 1950s? Because if that drug and surgery approach has outlived its usefulness, what is next? What options do you have? Perhaps the most obvious change in our daily lives, when we look at 50 years ago back in time, is the change from corded phones, and remember those ancient dinosaurs, the payphone? Because in 2010 we have apples. Look what modern technology has brought you. In 1950s, looking back some years in time, we had black and white televisions. And look what 2010 apples have brought to you. That is modern technology. In 1950, the oranges were these ancient stoves and ovens. And look now what 2010 apples has brought to you, the results of high technology. Flat electric burner panels, convection ovens, not to mention microwaves. 1950s oranges includes, when we look back some 50 years, the typewriter. The 2010 apples show you what modern technology has brought for you. The 1950 oranges includes the slide rule. Looking back 50 years, this was the best way to make any calculation. Unless, of course, you were Chinese and could use an abacus. But now the 2010 apples have brought the convenience of modern calculators to us for mere dollars. And there's one on every one of our desks where we want to use one. 1950 oranges brought us the Edsel. Who remembers the Edsel? And now look what modern technology has brought you. However, there are some other issues. 1950s technology, when we look back, brought us oranges called the squad car. And now look what modern technology has brought to you. Not to mention the red light cameras and that wonderful, but officer, I was only right. 1950 oranges brought us the most modern in air transportation. And looking back that 50 years, we never would have expected what we have now in 2010 with apples, the modern technology of intercontinental transport that goes for dozens of hours. And then on the health note, 1950s oranges, well, that surgery back then was hampered because we didn't have as many advances in anesthesia, antibiotics, and many of the techniques and technologies, joint replacement and such, that we did not have available then. And yet, in 2010, it still looks very much the same. Despite these advances that we have in surgery, it's still the same old approach. Well, who matters in this regard? Well, you matter. You're the patient. Now, it might be the same operation, but it's major surgery when it happens on me. Of course, it's minor surgery when it happens on you. That same goes for side effects of medications, like losing your hair with chemotherapy. Aren't you glad we can do chemotherapy? I know you lost your hair, but that's no big deal. Unless, of course, you're the one. So, 1950 oranges, when we take a look at space technology, we see that natural healing has emerged as a powerful technology as we've made these advances in our physics and biology and biochemistry technologies. So when we look back 50 years in time to the first satellite, Sputnik, and then come forward to 2010 with the apples that we have available, look what modern technology has brought you in the International Space Station. 1950, we had the most modern military pilots. And yet, that highest technology back then looks primitive when we look 50 years ago and compare it to what 2010 offers in terms of apples. Look what modern technology has brought you. And in terms of military performance equipment with regard to those applications, this was the famous F-86 Saberjet that helped win the Korean War. And yet 2010 apples brings us modern technology in the form of the F-22 Raptor, the most advanced stealth fighter in the world. When we talk about airplanes, a subject dear to my heart, the 1950 oranges shows us the Cessna 172, the premier 4-seat private plane in the 1950s with full equipment for instrument flight. Now the modern Cessna, the 2010 apples, if you'll notice, has airliner quality equipment. Those instruments are available now in small planes, including the small trainers. 1950 oranges, when we look back 50 years, we see an x-ray machine that could look inside you. Very impressive. And now look what 2010 apples have brought to you. This technology has safer ways of looking inside at how your organs are made and how they actually function. And these advanced instruments play an important part in natural healing. So when we think of 2010 apples and natural healing, we're thinking of gentle technology, evidence-based discoveries that wisely guide us to new horizons of healing. We welcome technology that involves machines. It's long past time to finally embrace truly modern healing. Now, 2010 apples. You always see the advertisement somewhere that says individual results may vary. Well, we say individual results will vary because one size, one drug, one operation doesn't fit all. We are all individuals with our own special needs, our own background, our different healing requirements and treatments that are needed to help us heal best. Now, when faced with confusing and costly and risky choices in medical care, don't throw in the towel. That's just foolish. Don't resign yourself to the kind of opportunities that are so limited in terms of drugs and surgery. Your choices actually can be quite simple, like the new Apple iPad. one button, on and off, and a finger touch screen that gives you full control over all of the other features. That is the kind of opportunity available to you in natural healing. Now, medical care helps great with acute injuries. Medical care helps great with acute infections. Don't you just love shaking someone's hand after you look at this picture? But usual medical care, the oranges, can help only partly with lifestyle illnesses. You can't medicate yourself out of diseases that you behave yourself into. My friend Roby Mitchell came up with that very elegant phrase to compare oranges and apples. Aging changes happen to all of us, but only natural healing can help preserve youthful vigor and function. Natural healing is for all ages. As I showed in my book, The Yeast Syndrome, no age is too young or too old for natural healing to be effective. So what do we do in natural healing? A whole variety of treatments for the vast majority of human ailments, regardless of diagnosis, regardless of what you've been told is your only option, regardless of what you've been told is there's no way out, you just have to learn to live with it. Regardless of all these things, natural healing often provides comfort and sometimes even dramatic improvement, dramatic changes that you would never expect. Because you see, you deserve the very best. Now, unlike new drugs and new operations, advances in natural healing technologies are safe, gentle, and effective. They are new. They are not scary. You might ask, is this our first rodeo? Well, it might be your first rodeo in terms of trying natural healing, but it's not ours. We've been offering natural healing treatments for over 30 years. It's simply to the people who've shown up, and you might not have yet come in. So you owe it to yourself and to your family to get our free CDs and DVDs, to get our recommended books, to learn the facts you need to know. And of course, many of these we've written or produced. We encourage you to see both sides, apples and oranges, especially the benefits and risks, because sometimes some of our patients are surprised we suggest drugs and surgery, because what you're after is the best for your particular situation. Listen to others. Talk with our patients about their successes. Come visit us in the office. Come talk with people on the telephone about how they have had benefits from apples instead of oranges. So, should you ask your doctor whether this is right for you? Well, we would suggest that you avoid asking an orange medical doctor about apple natural healing, a special kind of health care and treatment that he probably does not know much about. So you know the old story, well, ask your doctor. Well, you wouldn't ask a vet who doesn't know anything about human treatments. So don't ask a movie actor like Marcus Welby, MD, regardless of how persuasive he might appear in a television advertisement. Don't ask your neighbor or anyone else who actually doesn't know the facts about natural healing. Refer to someone like Robert Atkins, pictured on the left. Sorry, the right. See how easy it is deceptive that someone who looks good may not know good information for you. So, I ask you, do you see two Indians? Because you might need a specialist in natural healing. The fox is obvious and easy to see in this picture, but the more important details often require much more study and experience. That's what the specialty of natural healing is all about. Thanks to Bev Doolittle for this wonderful illustration to show us how easily our minds are tricked because everyone else is looking at the fox. Everyone else is choosing oranges instead of apples. It's time for a change of perspective. What's unrealistic is to expect that drugs and surgery create or promote natural healing. Simply doesn't happen. This is a change you can believe in. The choice is yours, and remember, what choice you make, what you decide for yourself, matters a great deal for you, your family, your future. This is the time of your life. This is not a dress rehearsal. It is the real thing. The time of your life can be shorter or longer. more vital or lackluster, more robust or fatigued. So, which should you choose? I say choose life, and choose life celebrating health. There is more fun to be had in your life. Go for it. Find that bigger fishbowl that you would much more enjoy than your current limitations. Choose robust health. Choose to be healthier and happier. It's what we want. It's what all of us want. It's right here for the taking, literally within your reach right now, today. So what should you do now? We say dial 1-800-FIX-PAIN. Get our CDs and DVDs, recommended readings. Come by or call to talk to our patients. Ask about their results. When faced with the choice of apples or oranges, dial 1-800-FIX-PAIN. It's the right thing to do, so you too can be happier and healthier for your coming years. Life celebrating health today and tomorrow. I would like to assure you that no animals were harmed in the making of this presentation. No doctors were intentionally harmed in the making of this presentation. And this is available now in a home theater near you. Share this with your friends. And remember to tell them for details to dial 1-800-FIX-PAIN. Thank you so very much.
I found Dr. T through my dentist. I go to a holistic dentist, and he introduced me to Dr. T. Well, I was in trouble. I was hurting so much, I couldn't stand it. I had a pain in my side. I did not know what was wrong. I'd been on every diet that you could imagine. I was just in agony. And so I went to see Dr. T. Had a big stack of paperwork I had to fill out. Boy, I filled it out because that was worth it. I had to find somebody that could take care of this pain. Well, I went in to see Dr. T, and he listened to all my stories, listened to all the diets that I'd been on, and what wonderful little health things that I had been doing. And he looked at me and he says, "You want to know what's wrong?" And you know that little funny laugh that he has. He says, "I can tell you." And I'm going, "Oh, good, I'm ready for this." He says, "You got shingles." I said, "Well, can you fix me?" Of course. He put me on an IV, and in 15 minutes, my pain was gone. He gave me medication. In 2 weeks, I didn't have the shingles anymore. Well, now to me, that was pretty miraculous because I hadn't been able to sleep for probably a month. I had been up on you know how, if any of you have had the shingles, you know how you feel, okay? He fixed me. Well, I was hooked from that point on. Everything else that happened to me, I came to see Dr. T. Well, a couple years later, I got injured on the airplane. I was a flight attendant. I was putting some bags up in the overhead, and I ended up hurting my neck. Then I went to see Dr. T. He gave me some RT. Well, then I was working in the galley a couple years later. Pulled out a carton of orange juice. Really hurt my neck. Hurt my lower back, too. Went to see Dr. T. Of course, by then I'd gone to the company doctor, and they were looking at maybe, hey, you might want to consider quitting flying. Well, with Dr. T's help, the help of 4 chiropractors, and the help of a lot of work hardening, I was able to go back to work. I was able to go back to work for another year. I have retired now, but you know something? I can do stuff with my retirement. I can get out, I can go work at a wolf sanctuary, I can do all kinds of things because Dr. T fixed my back.